Now, we all know how good the iPhone 10 was, but the real question is, how does it hold up today? Now, the 10th generation iPhone is not only a phone that'll forever be implemented in Apple's history, but it's also very revolutionary since Apple has followed this blueprint all the way up until this very day with the iPhone 14 Pro. You have the beautiful rounded curves, the notch that's still on the latest iPhone 14, the amazing build quality that can last you for many years, the high quality display that still holds up very well, and many other things that intensifies your overall experience. And even though there are many things that I love about the iPhone 10, there are some things about it that make me think of the word outdated, meaning that no matter how much I gas this phone up, it's still very behind in some things that can make or break your experience. And by many things, I'm talking about resolution, the battery capacity, the charging speeds, and many more things that I will get into later in this video. But besides my gripes and thoughts with the iPhone 10 as a whole, I still wanted to share my experience with you guys to help you decide whether or not it's actually worth buying in 2023. Now, starting with design, the iPhone 10 has a very complex yet simple look. It has rounded corners along with a very rounded frame that's easy to hold. It complements my hand very well. It makes me reminisce on the old days of the iPhone. Comparing it to newer iPhones, I feel like it's much more comfortable to hold with a case, but if you are the type of person that uses your phone without one, it'll be pretty slippery. And besides the minor details implemented, the iPhone 10 keeps that same foundation as the iPhones we all know, having the isolated power button, the volume rockers and mute switch on the same side, and the speakers, lightning port, and camera have the same placing as well. Now looking at its color, the version that I have is black, and I really think that this is the cleanest black that I've ever seen on an iPhone. It stays true to its title while also giving that premium yet simple glossy exterior that aged very well. Now the iPhone 10 has a 5.8-inch Super Retina OLED display that has surprisingly aged very well since this phone is damn near 6 years old. And while scrolling through it, it looked very sharp, punchy, the responsiveness was still up and kicking, and I had no major complaints besides it being a little outdated in resolution. The 60Hz on the device was still good. 120Hz displays weren't as common back then, so you could really get away with 60Hz, and it still has that signature Apple smoothness that's in a lot of the current phones of today. And now when it comes to durability, the 10 is definitely something that I would consider outdated. It has an IP67 dust and water resistance rating, and there is no ceramic shield, so if you're someone who doesn't want your phone to mess up on any random day, I suggest you get a case. The bezels are extremely small. Right here, you can see that they're wrapped nicely around the screen and are much cleaner overall. The notch looks just like it would on the newer iPhones, and you'll get used to it after a couple of days. And now when it comes to brightness, the iPhone 10 is at 726 nits, which is actually pretty interesting since we have phones that came out this year with a similar spec. Whenever I'm in the house, I can see everything very clearly, but once I go out on a sunny day, then it can get a little harder to see. And now when it comes to the size of the iPhone 10, I want to give you guys some pros and cons that I've experienced that may or may not deter your view of this phone. Now the pros of the iPhone 10 size is that it's a much more comfortable fit in hand. Whenever I use my 10, I was able to reach to the top of the screen with no problem, and it fits much easier in those hard to reach places. And the only con with the 10 size is that it's even smaller than the iPhone 14, so some of you guys may think it's too small when it comes to the viewing experience. And if you guys have a problem with its size, the iPhone XS is a really great alternative. Now the resolution and viewing experience of the iPhone 10's display is okay at best. It was great back then, but it looks pretty average now, but I was still able to see everything very clearly when watching videos. Playing games on it was fun, and there was plenty of screen real estate to enjoy it. Now the iPhone 10 has a 2700 mAh battery that again is very outdated. More than likely, you won't be able to last all day with heavy usage, but you can get a portable charger to fix this problem. I try my best to make it last all day with heavy usage. I play games, went to TikTok, talked to my family, and even though I wasn't able to last all day, it still lasted me half a day, which was still pretty good. And I'm usually getting over 3 hours of screen time a day, and I charge my phone twice a day. I was also using my 10 on power saving mode, but most of the time I did use it to the max, and it was still able to perform very well. But again, the battery has gotten worse over the years. And if I could give a quick estimate, I would say that my battery is usually on 20% by the end of the day, which was really good, but again, I had a lot of help along the way. And now the last thing that I wanted to touch on when it came to battery was the charging. And if I'm being honest, the charging isn't that great in terms of speed. It will take me well over an hour and a half to get to 100%, so my portable stay connected and I rely heavily on overnight charging. And now looking at software, the 10 supports iOS 16, which is very impressive in theory, but due to the 10 being an outdated phone and iPhone 16 being buggy even on newer iPhones, there were some problems that really came up. There were many times where my 10 would freeze on me, and it would happen at important times, like whenever I'm on a time limit, trying to check something, or even when I tried to use the camera. And besides those frequent freezes, a majority of the time the software was very smooth and worked very well. It felt just like the iPhone 11, and I feel like most of you guys will realize that in terms of software, it won't be the greatest, but again, this is a very old phone, so it'll do just good enough. And I also decided to test out some games on the iPhone 10. I play Asphalt 9, which is a game that can really test out the chip, and I got a lot of lags during my first couple of gameplays, but after a while it kind of smoothed out, but still, it's kind of buggy. Now, the final thing that I wanted to note was that the iPhone 10 will be getting 2 to 4 more years worth of software upgrades, which means that if you're looking to get a new one, you should try to lock in on it within the next 2 years. Now, when it comes to speakers, the iPhone 10 has some pretty mid-tier speakers, but that's expected. I watched some content on it and I turned the volume all the way up. The volume wasn't that bad, but the quality was definitely outdated. I also tested out how they sounded when playing music, and I got the same results. Quality lacked the more I turned it up, but headphones should fix this problem. I also tested the 10 as my alarm, and I set multiple just to be safe. I will usually wake up on the first alarm every time, so again, the volume isn't really much of an issue. Now, the iPhone 10 has a 12 megapixel main camera along with a 12 megapixel front that hold up okay when compared to newer phones. Now, starting with zoom modes, the iPhone 10 doesn't have predetermined zoom modes, but what I did was I manually zoomed in and took some pictures, and again, they weren't really that bad, and the quality looks pretty trash the more you zoom in, but I'm not going to go too hard on a 5-year-old phone. The shutter speed was pretty terrible. As you can see, every time I got like 2 shots in, and I'm not going to lie, I didn't really realize how bad the shutter speed on iPhones used to be, or maybe my 10 is just really bad, but again, I only got 2 shots, which was very below average. Now, next up, I want to show you guys how the camera performed in different environments, and the first environment that I will be starting with is daytime. Now, looking at the outside photos, we can see that they have a pretty good shadow of depth whenever I'm taking pictures of myself, along with a pretty nice blur. And this is scaled all the way up once I use portrait mode that Apple has always been good at. I also took some photos of random street objects, the sky, and different aspects of nature. And I can honestly say that the 10 held up very well in these environments, and I'm very impressed. Now, taking a look at inside photos, the 10 was able to capture everything very nice, and I found the pictures to be much better than I expected. Even when taking selfies, you can see how the camera handles already good lighting to produce an overall nicely taken photo. My skin tone looked really good, and the sharpness was pretty good. And now when it comes to shooting video, the 10 held its own weight. You have many different modes and frame rates to choose from, but again, this is the iPhone 10, so I believe it goes up to 1080p. And if you want better video quality, I suggest that you get the iPhone 12 or even the 13. Besides that, the video stabilization held up very well. I shoot videos with my phone, so if you're someone who wants to shoot regular videos, I would definitely say that the iPhone 10 is pretty good. You can use everything handheld, and the movements are very smooth, which was pretty impressive. So all in all, I would definitely say that the iPhone 10 has an okay camera that'll give you some good shots and bad shots depending on your environment. And also, here are some extra videos that I was able to get. And there it is, my review on the iPhone 10, nearly 6 years since its release. It's very outdated in some places, yet great in others. And I feel like if you're someone who doesn't want flashy tech, or you're a parent who wants to provide your kid their first phone, it would be a good option. But the iPhone 11, 12, and 13 are much better options, so you should go with those if you can. And let me know down in the comments, would you guys get the iPhone 10 in 2023? If so, why? And again, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video, and I'm going to see you guys in the next one. Peace.